Welcome back to your second video from section 2.4. We're going to talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. Remember that parallel lines have the same slope, different y-intercepts but the same slope. Lines that are perpendicular have slopes that multiply to be -1. In other words, the two slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. Alright, we're going to write an equation of the line that passes through -1, 1 and is A, parallel to, and B, perpendicular to the line y equals -2x plus 3. Alright, so for the solution, the given line has a slope m1, that's your reference line, of -2. A line that is parallel to it must have the same slope. So m2, the slope of the line we're looking for, equals m1 equals -2. They have to be the same. A line perpendicular to a line with the slope m1 equals -2 must have a slope of -1 divided by m1, which is 1/2. I think the easier way to approach that is you change the sign. So since the original one is positive, the slope of the line, is negative, the slope of the line we're looking for must be positive. Okay, the original line has a negative slope, so the perpendicular line has to be positive, and then you use the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 2, or 2/1, is 1/2. Use the point slope form with x1, y1 equals -1, 1 to write an equation of the line. Okay, so for part A, we use the same slope, so -2, and we use the point -1, 1 to fill in for x1 and y1. So we have y minus 1 because y1 is positive 1 equals -2 because we have the slope of -2 times x minus -1. Well, minus -1 is the same thing as plus 1, so we make that change, or we apply minus a negative is the same as adding a positive. So we end up with y minus 1 equals -2 times x plus 1. Now we want to put it in slope-intercept form, so we're going to need to distribute that -2. And so we get y minus 1 equals -2x minus 2. And then we add 1 to both sides. -2 plus 1 is -1. And so we end up with y equals -2x minus 1. So that is a line that is parallel to our reference line, y equals -2x plus 3, that goes through the point -1, 1. Let's move on to part B, where we find a line that goes through the same point, -1, 1, but that is perpendicular to our reference line. Okay, so for part B, again, we're going to use y minus y1 equals m2 times x minus x1. So we have y minus 1 because y1 is a plane 1, so we have y minus 1 equals 1/2 because remember we're using the perpendicular slope. Since the reference slope is -2, we change the sign and use the reciprocal, so that gives us 1/2 times x minus -1 because we substitute in that -1 for x1. X minus -1 is the same thing as x plus 1. So we have y minus 1 equals 1/2 times x plus 1. Now we're going to put the equation in slope-intercept form. So that means we're going to need to distribute that 1/2. And so we get y minus 1 equals 1/2 x plus 1/2, and then we add 1 to both sides. 1/2 plus 1 is the same thing as 1/2 plus 2/2, which gives us 3/2. So we have 1/2 x plus 3/2. So our final answer is y equals 1/2 x plus 3/2. So that is an equation of a line that meets two criteria. It passes through -1, 1, and it's perpendicular to our reference line of y equals -2x plus 3. Now the last thing we need to be able to do is write an equation given 2 points. And remember, the first thing you're going to want to do there is get the slope, and then you'll be able to use point slope form. So we're going to write an equation of the line through 3, 1 and 2, -3. Okay, so we need to know what the slope is, so we'll have an m to plug into our equation. So we're going to find m using x1, y1 equals 3, 1, and x2, y2 equals 2, -3. So m is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we have -3 minus 1 over 2 minus 3. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. Negative 4 divided by negative 1 is positive 4. So now we know m is 4. So we're going to plug in m equals 4, and we've already declared 3, 1 to be x1, y1, so we have everything we need for point slope form. Okay, so y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So we'll have y minus 1, because y1 is 1, equals 4, because m is 4, times x minus 3, because x1 is 3. Now we're going to put the equation in slope-intercept form. So that means we need to distribute that 4 to get y minus 1 equals 4x minus 12. And then we add 1 to both sides. Negative 12 plus 1 is negative 11. So we have y equals 4x minus 11. So that's the equation of the line that goes through 3, 1, and 2, negative 3. Okay, guys, go ahead and do those problems to try on your own. Make sure you bring your notes with you so you can show them to me in class, and we'll go over those problems to try on your own before you do the rounds. I will see you in class. Have a good day.